Hi, this is Real World Audio, and we are continuing to explore the world of sound and music. I have an expert with me, Kintaro. Hi, Kintaro. He is joining us today, very special day, and I'm going to share my thoughts about listening to movies. Can you have a nice movie theater experience at home? And of course, when we are thinking about movies, most of us think about home theater, right? And for home theater, people set up tons of channels, and if you want to do it properly, you have a very big room and you set up a home theater, a real home theater, and uh, and with that it's like a mini theater, maybe like 30 chairs or something like that. And I think if you want to go that way, if you want like a dozen chairs or more, then it's probably a great idea to do that. And if you look at like what Paul McGowan is doing, like he has such a home theater that he did for his grandchildren, and that's really amazing and fantastic. And that's where I see the viability of a home theater system. When you really want to build a large scale theater, then you can use those loads of channels, and then you can use the gobs of power to feed those channels, and then it becomes like a major theater installation. However, if you have a room which you use, like for example, like I do, for I use my living room for listening to stereo, listening to music, and I use my living room also to watch movies, and I have set it up so that my movie system is also the main stereo system. So basically, I'm using two channel stereo for movies. And then when you are used to surround sound home theater or Dolby Atmos or whatever, uh, mm, then you would say that, oh, that's a very, very compromised way, because that's two channel cannot be as good as 7, 9, 11, or God knows how many channels. And I would say that if we are talking about a living room size venue, basically your living room or a bedroom where you want to install watch movies, in that case, if you uh, add additional loudspeakers, that will overburden the room. Uh, it will. What I noticed is that the more loudspeakers you add, the more errors you add, and the more gimmicky it becomes in a small room. When you have like a large theater, then it's all right to have more channels, because you need the sound to reach far away, and then you can use the help of those additional channels, for one thing, to create high enough sound pressure. So it's the wrong thing to say, but high enough volume, or to give an experience for those people who sit in the front and those people who sit in the back. Because for a real real theater scenario, be it home or in the movies, the big challenge is that to create an experience for those guys who sit in the first row, maybe off center the first row, or who sit in the exact center, and those guys who sit in the very back. So if you just have two loudspeakers and a massive room, then depending on your position where you are placed, you have a vastly different experience. And you'll have a very few seats, which are the best seats of the house, which will sound excellent, but the rest you will have compromised experience. And that's when you install additional channels like Dolby Atmos, then you can expand that experience to be better for those who are not sitting at the best seat. However, in your living room, if you just want movies for yourself, or maybe for maybe like two or three people, then because that's what I'm doing. I'm just watching movies with Nelly and with the cats, and that's it. That's just the two or the four of us, basically. And then two channels are perfect to recreate a three-dimensional sound. And in most cases, when you want to watch home theater on a two-channel system, if you are using inert loudspeakers, especially like smaller size ones, like bookshelf size, then they will give you an image that will image between the loudspeakers and at a lower scale, I mean lower height, and not at the height of a higher screen. Uh, and then it will be a little bit odd that you have the sounds happening between you and the screen, but the action is happening at the screen. And to uh, relieve this scenario, that's when people install the surround speakers. But then to me, when I listen to those installations, then the sound from the first from the two channels and then the center channel, it's still images in front of the screen. It's still happening between me and it's still off because the characters are talking on the screen, but the voice is coming from in front, so there's a disconnect there. And what the surround channels do is that they draw the sound even more away from the action from the screen, so to me it just becomes even more bothersome. And 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 what is happening mostly, unfortunately, is most of the movies are just mixed in a way that when there's like machine gun and then tanks blowing things up, they come from behind you. And to me that's just like a nuisance, that's such a distraction. I don't even want to watch any movie like that because the action is on the screen. I want an authentic soundscape. I want, if there's an explosion in there, I want the explosion to originate from there and not behind my seat. And I don't want like if someone slams the door, like someone slamming the door behind me. I don't want that disturbances, because for example my system, that it can recreate even with these two channels someone slamming the door. Sometimes I don't know that really someone, the neighbor slammed their door, or did it come from the movie. So, but in that case, it sounds very authentic and not as a disturbing noise that I'm getting from a like an Atmos system. That it you hear it very crisp, very clean, but it also sounds very fake. Uh, so with these voice over Lancelot speakers that are omnidirectional, they create the atmosphere. And with these guys, what they can do, they can also image everywhere, but they don't image like a typical home theater installation does. That the sound is just really off. It doesn't really mesh together with the screen. And I noticed that at the movie theater too. I went to watch the new Dune movie, uh, uh, and in the theater, and I was just abysmally disappointed with the sound. The three dimensionality was totally off, and there was the center channel in the center of the screen, and it was just so odd that there's a character here, like Paul talking to Lady Jessica, and you see the lips moving on the screen, and the sound is coming from the exact center of the screen, because there's the center channel hidden right here, and I can hear the center channel giving all the dialogue and these two people on the side. That's just so messed up, guys. Uh, so when we have more than two channels, and people trying to mix movies for more than two channels, often it's a really big misfire. There are some perfect specimens, but 90% of the movies will not be enjoyable for you when you have a true full Atmos installation, because you will notice it's just so gimmicky. The mastering was poorly done on most of the movies, and you will be just forced to watch just a few movies where they had the budget and the mastering engineers who were good enough to master it properly. And for most of the stuff, it will be just awful and miserable, and it will really just limit your experience to watching a few movies over and over and then playing them as loud as possible to just make like boo other effects like really pop out. So what I'm saying is that when you have only two channels, and if they are uh, inactive cabinets, they will make all the action happen in your room in front of you, basically between the speakers and between you. But it depends. There are some speakers who imagine different ways, but and you can play around and toy around to have the action match up with the screen, so you can position your screen in a way, or maybe use a projection screen, a projector, and if you can play around and toy around with loudspeaker placement, you can more or less give like get the two in sync to behave much better, and and you can create a more enjoyable or credible experience with two channel in your home than with a multi-channel. Um, so especially like during the pandemic years, I've been watching way more movies at home than I did before, and watching them through the voice of Lancelot, it's a revelation. It's they have an immersion to the movies that's beyond the real loudspeaker. I mean the real theater immersion, because here what I have is I have the two channels, and when they film the movies, 99% of the attention is recording two channels, and the rest of the surround, rest of the atmos gimmickry is processing. It's electronic processing. They do take those two channels and they process the sound, reprocess it electronically to give that extra experience. But what that also does, it creates a fake effects which are really audible when you have a living room. If you have a theater size room that's big enough that the loudspeakers are far away from each other to not make this effect noticeable and disturbing, and honestly that's what the movie engineers are doing when they are creating the sound. They are optimizing it for the theater, so that Atmos installation is, it's the sound is optimized for a theater size room. It will work in a theater. In a living room size, it will sound too gimmicky. However, when you have just the two channels, they do have that information that can give you the ambient feel for a movie. So if in the movie they recorded, they had the camera and the microphones, the stereo mics shooting at the effect, like right here at the scene where it's going on, and there's like, it's a room, and then there's a door at the side and someone slams the door, then with those two mics, they pick up the sound in a way that when you recreate it with your two microphones, I mean two loudspeakers, then you will also hear as if someone slammed the door on the side. Provided your stereo system is good enough to recreate what the microphone recorded. And when you have inert cabinets, they are usually not good enough to recreate anything that is beyond the two loudspeakers. So they can image excellent between the two speakers, but they fail at the ambience, what happened in the whole surroundings that surrounded the action. And when you have omnidirectional speakers or live cabinets, which are basically omnidirectional because the liveness radiates the energy to the room, to every direction, instead of the drivers just pointing at you in an inert cabinet. So basically, what I wanted to say here, that if for movie experience, when you are in your room and it's a living room sized area or a bedroom, then two channels will give you the best possible home theater experience, and that experience can even go beyond how you experience sound in a movie theater, even the best installations. But when you want to install a system for like a home theater which have like 30 seats and it's like a gigantic room, then you need more channels. And actually that's why in the theaters they came up with the center channel, because the screen is too wide, and if people are sitting in the front and you sit closer to one side than the other, then you are just going to hear that. For in a real movie theater, if they didn't have a center channel, then you would need to sit at the middle of the theater or behind to get a nice 3D space. The third channel, the center channel, is there for those people sitting in the front. And that's when you need a center channel, when you have a big enough space that where, depending on if you sit on one side or another, or there's a vast distance between the first row and the last row, then in those cases you need a center channel. And when it's like first row, maybe like 10 rows of seats, then you need additional speakers behind you to support those guys who sit in the back. And this was the long video, and I will give a very short video about the center channel, because even if you are using two channel stereo, people notice that when I add the center channel, wow, I can hear the dialogue. Without that, dialogue is messed up. Why is that? And how we can fix that with two channel stereo? You don't need to add the center channel. Why and how? We'll go into it. Bye bye.